I'd like to welcome you to this second mobile security talk. Today, I'm very excited to be here with my friend and very fine gentleman in the mobile space, Paul Troisi, who is the Chief Customer Officer over at TroyMobility. Hi, Paul.
Good morning, Alessandro. Good day, Alessandro. How are you today?
I'm very good. How about you?
Outstanding, outstanding.
Paul, why don't you also quickly introduce yourself and also what it is that you're doing exactly?
Sure, outstanding. Well, first and foremost, thanks for allowing us the opportunity to come and have this chat with you. We always love talking with our partners about the technology and the mobile security space. By way of introductions, Paul Troisi, I'm the Chief Customer Officer here at TroyMobility. TroyMobility is a mobile security solution provider, specializing in, I guess we could call them 4 silos in the mobile security marketplace. Where, strategic consultants, strategic mobility consultants, that primarily specialize in helping SMB and mid-market organizations make sense of the mobile security marketplace. We back up our mobile consulting services with a portfolio of mobile security solutions, in particular the Hybridgate platform, that really help companies enable a full mobile ecosystem, if you will. And that's backed up by our professional services team and a managed mobility services practice here. Over the past 10 years or so, we've been at this since 2010.
Wow, that's quite some track record over there.
Yes.
Nice. And what did originally bring you into the space?
Well, that's a great story, and I love talking about this one, Alessandro. So, here in the U.S., and I think globally, I think 2008, 2009 were pretty rough years for a lot of people. As I kind of looked into the crystal ball and started doing some research and trying to hypothesize where our economy was going to go in the next 10 years. As I started to look at what was going on in the mobile marketplace, if we think back to 2010, a little known company called Blackberry, sort of reigned supreme in that enterprise space, and an iPhone, brand new shiny little gadget was just coming into the place. And, I kind of said, there's no way Blackberry can continue to maintain this stranglehold on the enterprise and the public sector. So as my research unfolded in 2010, I was hearing about these things called MDMs, mobile device management solutions. And as I started to peel back that onion a little bit, I started to realize that there was a marketplace for this. Coming from a solution provider mindset and mentality over the past 20 years, strong in the telecom and technology space, I realized that there was probably a market for this. And then in particular, as we started to peel that onion back, we also realized that there wasn't a lot of specialists in the market. There was a lot of generalists. So you saw organizations that said, yeah, hey, we can do MDM, we can do mobile security, but we don't do it great. Maybe our forte is network services, disaster recovery, business continuity, et cetera, unified communications, telephony, et cetera. So they were kind of dabbling into it. And then the second thing that really enlightened us was nobody was taking care of the SMB in the mid-market. They were all companies that were primarily taking care of the larger organizations, public sector, clients. And we said, we think there's a marketplace there. And that was the impetus to the business.
And what do you think has changed since the BlackBerry era to afterwards the iPhone? What was the real innovation over there?
Well, we're seeing it right now. Think back to that time frame. The iPad hadn't even been released. It was just coming out January, Q1 2010 time frame. So if you really think back about that and you think about the innovation that's really transpired over the last 10 years, now all of a sudden we've seen this explosion of iOS and the Android operating system in particular, that holds an incredible market share these days. You saw this explosion of, multi-OS coming into the marketplace. So ultimately, that's kind of where it started, was really around that 2010 timeframe.
Yeah, for me, it's still today mind-boggling that such a big company like Blackberry managed to become more or less irrelevant in the space, seeing all the power and strength that it used to have in that area. So
yeah, no doubt, no doubt. So, look, enough about me, right? I mean, I love hearing about the Hybridgate story and the origins of Hybridgate. So, inform me further, inform our audience.
well, I think for the SMB market, which is the topic, of course, today, what is really relevant about Hybridgate is the ability to basically enable your workforce to access on-premise, but also cloud resources directly without any interaction when it comes to entering credentials. And this has, of course, two effects. One, it's more secure because if you don't have to enter any credentials, you will not be prone to any phishing attacks. And two, it is, of course, easier for the people because they can just consume whichever resource that they want.
Mm-hmm.
And especially in the SMB market, you have these setups with Active Directory where you don't necessarily want or can put everything in the cloud. And this is where I see the most growth at the moment. Yeah. But I mean, you've seen it as well, receiving the Hybridgate award for last year, right? Yes.
There it is.
I can see it. Perfect.
Proudly displayed, and thank you.
Well, thank you for all that you've done so far. And yes. No, perfect. Do you see any major challenges now for the SMB market coming up, just in general? What are the challenges that you see coming up over and over again?
Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty common question that we normally have to answer. I reflect back to an impromptu interview I had with a good friend of mine, Doug Atkinson, over at Solutions Review last year at the Mobile Iron customer event. Yes. And there we really talked a lot about, the implications of mobile security to the SMB and to the mid-market sector. And clearly when we look at that sector, there are a couple of clear and obvious problems that they're faced with, and some that are very, similar to their larger counterparts. I think the first and foremost is, I touched on it a little bit earlier, specialist versus generalist. So we traditionally see in the, especially in the SMB, your IT resources are thin, they're lean, there certainly isn't as many of them. And the biggest challenge is they're wearing multiple hats. They're taking care of your infrastructure, your firewall, desktop support, end user lockouts, etc. And now all of a sudden, you're going to pile on mobile security onto this, which then says, hey, let's go ahead and let's roll out, iOS, Android, Windows 10, Mac OS. Let's put it all under one console, one pretty little package for us to, manage all of our endpoints through a single pane of glass, where traditionally those have been very separated and disparate. I think the second piece that really comes into play is budgets. Traditionally the SMB has tighter budgets. They need to be a little bit tighter around where they're spending their money and making sure that the ROI is there for them to recoup that investment. And then, as we look at it, the hardcore reality is, regardless of the size of an organization, regulatory compliances exist. So whether or not you're in financial services or healthcare, the legal field, they're all bound by very similar regulations. And very rarely do those regulations have a stipulation that say, if you're a certain size, then, there isn't this if then kind of comparison. It's, here's the regulation, and you need to abide by the regulation. We have financial services customers that have 25 seats. We have financial services customers that have 1,500 seats. They're bound by the same regulatory compliance. Yep. So you're constantly dealing with this. And then when we peel out Well, a smaller organization really can't bear the brunt of buying all the hardware, paying for all of the services associated with it, and then add in that additional cost of support internally from a help desk. Now, all of a sudden, you're dealing with a really expensive proposition for a small business. So in comes BYOD. How do we enable the right solutions in order for us to, provide a productive, efficient workforce working remotely that also has a good user experience? So that's where Hypergate really comes in and says, here, how do we enable that ease of use and that good user experience for the end user?
Oh, absolutely. I think you're touching base on a very important point there, that I think what is really important when you especially have very tight budgets is to find a way to unify the infrastructure that you have and not introduce additional technical debt. Because in the end, if the infrastructure used by your mobile device is entirely different than the infrastructure used by your computers, this will translate to very high operational costs, which for a larger organization can be fine because you can allocate a full-time employee just doing that. However, especially for the mid-market, it's important to be able to make everything more simple. And of course, where stuff is not that simple and where you need then experts, get that expertise from guys like you, for instance, because you know better than I do that the mobile devices are an entirely different animal than, let's say, computers, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, clearly, when we talk with our customers, we always, like to talk about we're an extension of your IT organization with a focus on mobile security. There are components that they might be comfortable outsourcing and saying, here, you manage this for us. And then there's other scenarios where they just simply say, we need you at the table during this conversation about mobile security. But more importantly, you're absolutely right. When we start talking about the various operating systems, each of them have their own unique quirks about them. iOS is different than Android, which is different than Android Enterprise, which is different than a Mac OS, which is different than your Windows 10. So now you have the complexity of not only learning just one OS, maybe we got Windows 10 squared away with an SCCM solution, great, fantastic. Well, now an end user wants to bring in their Mac. They got Android, but it's an older Android. It's not, a Samsung device. So how do we manage that with a UEM console, because those APIs aren't there? So then we have to, look at Android Enterprise that sort of helps us standardize the playing field a little bit and leverage, a solution like Hybridgate, which, with your authenticator platform is, a fantastic way to enable some of that technology and single sign-on and, cert-based authentication, especially, and then look at how do we make this a little bit simpler for the end user.
Yeah, I think simplicity is definitely key in this in this field.
Yeah.
But I think in general, I mean, for everything that has to do with IT, the simpler you make it, the more secure, and in the end, the better it will be. Yeah. Usually, right? But of course, there is no silver bullet.
And then what also ends up happening is you get buy-in. You get buy-in from your executive team and your C-suite. You get buy-in all the way down the entire organization. So when you're making it simple and it's not invasive and the user experience is solid, where that end user is still productive in their remote office, they work from home, they're on the road, maybe they're a road warrior, and they're still able to access the type of resources as if they're sitting in the office, on the LAN, connected with their laptop or computer. When you start now leveraging in the simplicity and of being able to access my data and being able for me to do my job, that then increases that buy-in, it increases that comfort level of the end user community.
Absolutely. I think being able to get actionable data in the hands of a mobile user, this is in the end what this whole work is about, right? Because there you start getting really those efficiency yeah, gains, and there the whole mobile strategy starts to pay off.
Yep.
I mean, there are a couple of examples, like underwriters being able to sign contracts on the go. But yeah, there are tons of other things out there. I mean, it is changing the way we do business and changing the way we work. So that's for sure. One thing that would interest me actually is, have you ever come across a deployment where you managed to entirely get rid of the computer device? So bringing that person mobile only, or is this still something that is a little bit more in the future?
I think we're still looking through life through rose-colored glasses on that one, Alessandro. I don't think a Windows 10 laptop or a Mac is going to go away anytime soon. I think we certainly have looked at a transitionary period in which the form factor is a preferred smartphone or tablet. I can't say it's going to be the only.
Yeah.
We do see certain pockets, certainly if you look at education, certainly if you look at healthcare, you're seeing, you know, more enablement of a tablet environment going bedside versus a carded, you know, laptop rolling down the aisles, rolling down the hallways. You see more adoption for, you know, Android form factors in the educational space, in particular your K through 12, for instance, you know, where they might not necessarily have the budgets to be able to go out and buy brand new iPads. Instead, they can get away with being able to enable something on an Android device, being able to put it in kiosk mode, and then be able to push the learning solutions, etc. So I don't think we're dealing with a complete annihilation of the computer. I mean, as I
That
look
would
at
take time. Yeah.
it, will. I mean, as I look at me, I'm in the mobile security space. I have a desktop on my computer on my desk with 3 monitors. I've got my laptop that I still use, Windows 10. But I also look around my desk and I've got an iPhone, I've got an Android device, I've got an iPad. So, you know, it's you know,
But
we live
you're
in the
maybe
world of
not the
gadgets.
standard user, right?
No, I'm not.
That's
But you know, but it's important for us to be able to have those different form factors for us to be able to, you know, test for our customers and make sure that if there's a problem, we can recreate and replicate that problem so that we can identify what the root cause of it is.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, of
I'm an
course.
anomaly.
Yeah, and I guess this also has improved a little bit since the work profile introduction of Android Enterprise, where everything is unified a little better, right?
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt. So,
Perfect.
so
Yeah,
now, let me ask you this question, because, you know, this is dialogue here, Alessandro. I mean, what are you seeing from, you know, this whole pandemic world that we're dealing in, you know, the events of 2020 that have, you know, really revolutionized, you know, how people are working, and, you know, the increase in work from home and so on and so forth. Have you seen that little uptick in organizations starting to say, how can we simplify this?
well, definitely. I mean, what 2020 has been is basically a huge accelerator for all these digital transformation projects that were just sitting there, and management would just have them as an ongoing thing, right? Yeah, we're going to get to that. And then, boom, all of a sudden, if you were not digitalized, no one could work.
Yeah.
And we definitely saw a lot of demand in that area, where people now wanted to do more on the go, as in from home, with mobile as well as with their computer. Specifically in our solutions, what has increased in demand was the ability to have a self-service password reset functionality on your mobile phone, without the need to go to or perform a support call because you just forgot your Active Directory password.
Mm-hmm.
And it goes so far that someone even told me that they had this physical office that was only open with a single machine so that people would be able to reset their password. So people would go to the office to be able to reset their password. And I mean, we laugh now about this, but actually there are more companies than you think facing or having structures like that. And you cannot really think bad of them, because no one could have foreseen what just happened, right? From one day to the other, and then you start introducing such, let's say, pragmatic approaches, right?
No, the events of 2020 have certainly stimulated many organizations into that, digital transformation. I couldn't agree with you anymore. And, and clearly one of the things that we talk with our customers a lot about is, aren't you glad you got ahead of that curve? So many organizations that have embraced, MDM, EMM, UEM, whatever acronym we want to call it today, a mobile security platform to be able to manage your, manage and secure your mobile devices and provide your end users the necessary data and information they need to be successful while they're sitting in their living room or their, remote office, becomes, one less thing that IT needs to be concerned with. So now we look with our customers and say, okay, now what's the next step for us to enable the right solutions or the next phase of solutions? Because as we've always said, mobile security is a phased approach. Big bang theory doesn't work anymore. It worked once, okay? And, it's best when you phase in that technology and those changes to your end user community so that they're comfortable with the changes you're making, management is comfortable with the changes, and help decrease that support cost, that overall support cost to your IT infrastructure.
Definitely. And also, one big point that should not be forgotten is the resilience factor, because yes, some people had laptops at home to just do their working from home. However, what would happen if the Citrix or whichever server was used for virtualizing that desktop went down, no email whatsoever could be read. And that's also a big reason why everybody that already was on mobile had a huge advantage in productivity. Just that resilience factor there.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, let me ask you this question, because this is probably the most important question. As you see the SMB and the mid-market starting to explode, Alessandro, and you see more of them really consuming cloud services, I mean, what's the impact to Hypergate?
Well, so Hybridgate itself is a Kerberos client. This means that we rely on the fact that some Kerberos needs to happen. A thing that, there is a little misconception that Kerberos wouldn't work with any cloud services, because the truth is that what Kerberos does is it basically allows your device, because you authenticate it to your device, automatically to authenticate with any service or resource out there. So it's basically the thing that removes username and password, and it has very little to do with whether something is on premise or in the cloud. That being said, though, if you move let's say your Active Directory to a cloud environment and remove the capability of Kerberos, then of course Hybridgate will not be very helpful there. So what we see is that yes, many customers are moving to the cloud, but I have, and this might be because I have a biased view, I haven't met any customer yet that has moved really everything to the cloud, namely the crown jewel, right? The Active Directory, their user directory into the cloud. And I think it makes sense that we're not seeing that, because in the end, if you give away that specific piece, you will have a very hard time if there is an outage. However, I think there are many advantages as well to the entire usage of the cloud, because it's very easy to scale certain things as well.
You're spot on the money. You can move certain services up to the cloud, but when those critical services like Active Directory head up there, then it gets a little dicey.
Yeah, yeah, we've seen a couple of people or companies that tried to do it and had this master admin password in case something would not work and the entire company wouldn't be able to log in to their machines. But yeah, I really don't think it's a risk worth taking, and it's also what we see in the end in the market.
Sure.
Perfect. I see that I want to be very mindful of your time and also the audience's time. Is there anything that you want to add before we wrap up here?
No, I mean, hey, listen, this is a great conversation, Alessandro. I really appreciate the opportunity. Greatly appreciate the awards you bestowed upon myself and my team here at TroyMobility as, Salesperson of the Year in 2019. Thank you very much. Hopefully, we can be a repeat performer. And
I'm expecting that.
It's been great chatting with you as always. Hope you, your team, your families all stay safe and well through this pandemic.
Thank you very much. And I cannot say anything more than I wish you as well the same thing. And I hope that this has been a very interesting talk to also watch for our audience so that they know now a little bit better about the SMB market out there. Thanks, everybody.